Welcome to Global Perspectives. This season, we're taking you on a journey through the most critical global issues of our time. Joining us today is Kirsty Nancarrow, an award-winning journalist, book author, business owner, and an advocate for women in media. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Arya.
You have had a career that spans 3 decades into journalism. Can you tell us about how this career began and how old were you when you first started?
I was only 9 years old. Many people take a long time to decide what they want to do when they grow up, but I always knew I liked writing. I started writing poetry when I was very young, and my grandfather was my main inspiration for writing. He passed away when I was 10. By then he had planted a seed. He told me a year before that I reminded him of a well-known current affairs presenter in Australia at the time, Jan Event, and it got me thinking about a career in journalism. So basically from that time onwards, I was focused on doing everything I could with my study and my activities to become a journalist.
How important do you think it is to have an academic background in order to pursue a career in journalism?
I don't think it's necessary at all. I think of journalism as a craft. I think you have to have some natural talent, ability to write, and empathy for people, and critical thinking as well. So I think these are the important ingredients for a good journalist. Having said that, it's a very popular career, and certainly in Australia, I didn't achieve what I wanted to, which was to work for the Australian Broadcasting Corporation until I completed my Masters of Journalism. So I took a different path. Many people in Australia will go from their senior school into university, but I was so keen to be getting my hands dirty and getting into journalism that I actually took a cadetship with my local newspaper, and I put university on hold for a while. But ultimately, I realized that I would need a combination of the work experience and also the university experience in order to get the job that I wanted to. And even still, I grew up in Sydney, and I had to move to the middle of Australia to start my career with the Australian Broadcasting Corporation. So many sacrifices, but was very committed to my goal of working in the media, and it opened up a new world for me.
Journalism is a very intense career, and you've led the ABC as a chief of bureau as well. And what do you think are the major challenges that people outside don't see?
Well, we think of first responders like police and ambulance officers and defence personnel, and we accept that they might have exposure to trauma. But we don't ever think about that in terms of journalists. But we're the ones who are often there when things are happening, bad things are happening, and we're bearing witness, and we're having to remain objective. And it's very hard if you're an empathetic person to detach from that. I have had my own experiences, so I try to educate people about the fact that journalists are often first responders, and we're seeing things, we're seeing a lot of trauma, and we're having to talk to people who are having the worst day of their life. So I think a lot of people don't understand about that side of things, and also how busy journalists are. The career has evolved so much since I started. I began as a newspaper journalist, and then when I started at the ABC, I was a radio reporter. But fairly soon after that, the internet became much bigger, and we were writing stories for online, which is a different form of writing, and then required journalists to be by media. So we had to do television stories as well as radio stories. And then social media became big as well. So we were also writing for and reporting for those platforms. And finally, towards the end of my time at the ABC, we were also given camera equipment and asked to film our own stories as well, which personally I loved. I really enjoyed that side of the job, but it's another layer. So you're doing radio, television, online, social media, and filming stories yourself. So it's a lot of things to think about simultaneously, as well as trying to think of the questions and create a good story.
You mentioned having faced a similar trauma when you were also engaged in journalism in day-to-day. So how did you overcome that?
I had to step away, essentially. It was interesting reporting many times on people that were having some mental health problems, and youth suicide was a very big problem. And then to find myself in a similar situation in 2016, I'd become the chief of staff of the bureau that I was working in, and just started to notice some subtle changes in my personality. Began to withdraw, didn't want to do social activities, and then found it really hard actually being at work and focusing, and eventually was diagnosed with depression. And after I left my career, I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, but I didn't know that at the time. So at the time, I basically had to take a break. I accepted that I wasn't any use to anybody at that point in a work sense, and I was always very big on supporting the other people around me in my team. So I thought the best thing at that stage was to take some time out. And that's where my intersection with Nepal happened. So for me, after recovering my sleep, because that was the first thing, is just having some complete rest for a couple of months to get that back on track, and some medication. And then I needed to find my sense of purpose again. Mm-hmm. So for me, it was about volunteering, and I was volunteering on a turtle rehabilitation project in the place that I live. And then I had met Som Tamang the year before, after the earthquake, and he suggested maybe I would like to spend some time in the village, Nepal, in his village in Nepal. So that was very much part of my healing journey. Mm-hmm. I came with no expectations, I suppose, but being in a place like Batasi in Sindapalchuk, where you have the beautiful mountains, the fresh air, the warm people, and you see how happy people are with very little and how generous they are. Mm. It really changed my perspective, and being able to volunteer in the school really re-established my sense of worth, mm-hmm. self-worth as well. Mm-hmm. So that's how I recovered. And after my PTSD diagnosis, I did have some treatment as well. So there's a very effective treatment called EMDR, which happened over the course of a year and a half, and I was able to recover that way.
So for the journalists who are still in the field, what do you think can be done to make their lives a bit easier?
They could be put under less pressure, I suppose, but it's a resource issue. It's like every other industry. It seems it's actually sometimes hard to get journalists now. So those who are working in the field, there is a lot of pressure on them. I think from a personal point of view, it's really important to ensure you have self-care. Sometimes we put ourselves last, especially if we're trying to grow our career, and that is certainly the case for myself. Mm-hmm. It was not uncommon for me to do 12-hour days end on end, thinking that it would somehow help advance my career. So if I had my time again, I would probably create more balance earlier in my life, making sure I had regular exercise and regular holidays and breaks. But also, I think the industry needs to do better, and probably globally, with supporting journalists and acknowledging that they are, in a sense, first responders. So my organisation did have a program where you could engage, have a few sessions with psychologists, but I think it needs to be part of the conversation more regularly. We're quite happy to talk about health and fitness, and I think mental fitness needs to be part of that equation with supporting journalists in the field, because they are exposed to all sorts of things. They can be exposed to abuse, they can be exposed to just people who are very traumatized as well, and we're human beings, so you can't help but take some of that pain on yourself.
Does the sector of journalism have any specific problems when it comes to gender, any problems that are just female specific?
I know in Australia there's been a pay inequity with journalists between men and women, and it's something that our Women in Media Australia organisation is very vocal about and trying to close that gender pay gap. And I know it's not just journalism that exists, but other industries, but certainly that is a female issue in Australia. We are seeing more female leaders, but I think it is still a male-heavy industry, and certainly the reporting as well. We see much more coverage of achievements by men and narratives by men. So
after so much of experience, you have transitioned from storytelling. News writing is a form of storytelling. So transition from storytelling to teaching others how to write stories and empowering their voices. What is the reason behind this transition?
I think for me, it was a natural progression. I had always mentored other journalists when I was in the field, even though it wasn't part of my role. I started my first company in 2017 called Regional Media Training, and now that has been absorbed into another business called Emotion, Video and Media Training. And I do that with my friend Susie Cray. She's a camerawoman editor. And so we had both ends of the storytelling experience. And for us, it's about sharing our skills and our knowledge. And everybody has a smartphone these days, and they have pretty good cameras. So we are on a mission to empower everybody, wherever they live, regardless of how remote, to use this technology to tell their stories in their own way. And teaching confidence as well, because everybody has a story. Even somebody with the most humble beginnings has a story to tell that can offer something to someone else. So for me, it's about a drive to give voices to people. That's what I did as a journalist, but now I see the potential for giving people the skills to do that for themselves.
Along with being a trainer, you've also transitioned into the role of being an author. And since you've been into news writing for such a long time, how was book writing different for you?
It was so different. I was used to instant gratification from being a journalist, and sometimes I would write 20 stories in a day, and you have that body of work to show at the end of the day, and the next day is a new day. So a book is sustained over a much longer period. I first decided I wanted to write a book at the end of my journey in 2016, and it's 2024, and it's just come out this year. So it is a long process. It is a different way of writing. So it's like a marathon, an endurance test. And of course, when you're writing somebody else's story, there's a lot of responsibility. And I'm not only writing the story about somebody else's life, but I'm writing the story of somebody else's country. And there's a big fear about doing justice to both of those things. I had only been to Nepal that one time, and then in 2018 returned to get some interviews for the book. But yeah, I had to be educated by others in the industry about letting go of some of those journalism traits, writing factually, writing everything in quotes, to allowing the story to breathe and narrative and adding colour. So I drew very much on my personal experiences in Nepal, how everything smelt and felt and the emotions I was feeling, and I wove those into the writing. So that is very different from being a journalist. So it has been very educational for me, this process of transitioning to being an author. And then, of course, you have the finished product, and that's not the end, because you need to get it out to the world. So that was a whole other process, trying to get the book published and then also getting it out to the world once it is published.
Himalayan Dreams touches upon gender equality and human trafficking in Nepal. How does the book contribute to the global discourse when it comes to gender equality?
Two things that SOM has been motivated by is stopping child marriage and also stopping trafficking from the village. It was quite prevalent, and in the last 10 years, no girls have been trafficked. And that is directly attributed to the fact that there has been support for girls to go to school, financial support, and a hostel for them to be safe in. So I think it is raising the awareness that this is still happening. It's quite alarming to acknowledge that an estimated 50 women are still trafficked to India from Nepal almost every day. So it is still happening. So I wanted to elevate the awareness of these issues, which are not exclusive to Nepal. They happen around the world. And I think the more we talk about them, the more we make people aware, then the more active people become in trying to change that, whether it's legislatively or voting with their feet or where they visit, giving financial support, etc. So that is really what I hope people take from that. But I also want people to be inspired. I want people to reflect on their own life. And if somebody who comes from nothing has been able to make all of these changes in his own life and so many others, what is possible for any one of us?
True. Storytelling is a key medium for advocacy, and it connects people with emotions. So that's how change is driven. With so much of years of experience in storytelling, now that you're an author, what is the legacy you wish to leave behind?
I want to pass my skills on, and that is what I'm doing. I love training people, empowering people how to engage with media, to amplify their stories, to tell them their own stories, their own way, using the device that they have with them all the time. And I think when you write a book, that is a legacy item. So I'm so proud that this story has been captured for all time, for people to enjoy and draw reflections on their own life and strive to be more and do more in their own life. So I hope that is my legacy.
It was wonderful having you here in the show.
Namaste.
We will be back with another episode. Until then, hope you have a great week ahead. Namaste.